Hi guys, we've had Get Brexit Done and Stop the Boats as election and Conservative Party slogans. Will the next one be Breed for Britain? So Miriam Cates is one of those on the extreme right of the Conservative Party who incidentally lost her seat at the recent election and is calling on British women to have more kids. She was responding to a question about immigration and if the Tories are too obsessed with the issue. Cates says that Britain needs to grow its population and stop relying on foreigners. Have a listen to this.
Earlier, whether the leadership candidates are too focused on immigration in this campaign, too focused when you had already focused on it in the last government at the expense of other issues. I mean, do you accept that actually the defeat in the election was about trust generally, but not just on immigration, but on the economy?
Well, I think the problem that we're seeing is that people are saying immigration is the cause of our problems, whereas I think it's actually the symptom of many problems that we have. So, for example, the fact that we have record numbers of net migration, yes, it's a function of the fact that the visa threshold was set too low, but actually it's a function of the fact that our labour market needs more people because we're not having enough children. And I was just looking at the birth rates earlier today. In the 60s, about 850,000 babies were born a year. It was this is really serious. Point.
But what I would say, this will take 20 years. It's not going to solve the problem now, is it,
But if we don't recognise it's the source of the problem, last year fewer than 600,000 babies were born. We've got a 30% gap in the number of babies being born. So we need higher immigration. So you can say we're going to cut immigration. Well, that's possible, but we will end up like Japan. We will stagnate. Now that's a political choice. So what we've got to do is increase the birth rate at the same time as going for higher status migration. I agree with that. But to say that immigration is the cause of the problem, I don't think it's not. I think it's a symptom of the problem that we have.
Do you agree?
Okay. She's correct to a certain extent. What she's saying here is, look, if you want to grow your economy, you need workers. You can either rely on foreign workers, immigrants, or you can try and grow the population yourself and train up your own workers. So she's correct. But the problem is this is coming from a Tory. And what have the Tories done over the last 14 years? Have they helped people have a family? No. And it's not even that they've neglected the issue. They've actually actively put obstacles in the way of people having a family or having more kids. So one of the main issues when it comes to having a family is where they live. Have the Tories helped people get onto the property ladder? No. Have they helped renters? They've done diddly squat. In many cases, they've made it more difficult for people. So on the one hand, you're saying people need to have more kids, but where are these kids going to live? You're not helping people when it comes to job security. Are you improving job security? No. You're advocating for 0-hour contracts and stuff like that, where people are in a situation where they have no job security. And of course, it's very difficult to get a mortgage, for example, to buy a house if you have no job security. When it comes to working, she mentioned the 1960s. Yes, but in the 1960s, one breadwinner was sufficient to pay the rent or to pay the mortgage and to feed the family. That's no longer the case. In most households, you need two people working, maybe even doing more than one job each. And who looks after the kids then? Well, you need to rely on childcare. And childcare in Britain is the most expensive in Europe, I believe, or one of the most expensive countries in Europe for childcare. So what have the Tories done about that? Diddly squat. So on the one hand, you're saying to people, you need to have more kids, but the Tories have actively worked against that goal. It's no good just telling people. You actually have to help people. So if you don't want to import people from abroad, as the Tories keep saying, then you need to create an environment where people feel safe to have kids. They believe that there are sufficient facilities available. For example, schools are not crumbling down, hospitals are not falling apart, that they have access to services, that they have the job security to ensure that if they have a kid that they're not going to be worrying about whether they're going to be in a situation where they're destitute. And of course, they need to be able to access housing. So you need to put those things in place first, and then you can encourage people to have kids. There's no point trying to do all the encouragement first, because reality works against that. It's easy for a Tory MP who was on 90-something thousand pounds a year to turn around to people and say, hey, you need to have more kids. It doesn't work like that. And I believe it's ideological. It's we're an anti-immigration party, so we want to grow up the British population. You know, on the one hand, they keep saying Britain is full, we can't take any more people, public services are falling apart. But on the other, they're saying we need to have more kids, which is an action. Ordinary British citizens are more of a strain on public services than foreigners are, and I've mentioned that before, and the reason why. Because somebody arriving in the country at the age of 18 has all of the education and costs, most of the costs of their life already covered by a foreign state. But for ideological reasons, the Tories don't want immigrants. But they don't want to help people have kids either. Well, make up your mind. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.